While people are discarding you, someone is discovering you. This was a quote that I heard recently by one of my favorite thought leaders and pastors, Bishop R.C. Blake's. Now, I used to attend Bishop R.C. Blake's church when I lived in New Orleans, but I no longer live there, so I do follow his content on social media. And so this got me thinking about the idea of rejection when we think about our approach to business are just goals that we're trying to set for ourselves. And so, one thing that I want to share with you is that if you are going to be a person who is always constantly following your dreams and putting yourself out there, I implore that you get comfortable with rejection because it will happen all the time. Now, this topic came up for me because recently with my business, we have been in a season of rejection. And now I know a lot of people are like, well, why are you sharing this? That must mean that you're doing something wrong. That must mean that you're not qualified and capable to do what you're doing. And that is actually not the case at all. So, for the last year or so in my business, we have been in a season where we have just been putting ourselves out there. Every opportunity we come across, whether we think we're a good fit or not, we put ourselves out there. And so the reality of it is that the more you put yourself out there, the more that you are going to be rejected. And so I don't know if y'all have heard of a concept or a thing called rejection therapy. And so I know that often there are a lot of videos on social media. I've mostly seen them on TikTok, not so much Instagram, where people will literally put themselves through what they call rejection therapy. And so what that means is that they will like go into a store and ask for something that is like completely asinine, or they will, go up to a stranger and ask a stranger for like $100 or something. And in most cases they get either like a really strange look or they're told no, but there have been cases where these people have asked for something really off the, like over the top, just really asinine stuff, and they've gotten told yes, or they've been given what they've requested. And so that concept is really interesting to me when we think about just the nature of humans, and that a lot of times we actually punish ourselves out of opportunities before we even give someone a chance to tell us yes, no, maybe I'll think about it, whatever the case is. And so the topic of today's conversation is about the concept of rejection and some things that you can do to position yourself where rejection does not feel debilitating to you when you are told no in a situation. And I will say rejection can transfer across a lot of different facets of our life, right? So, although this topic today is specifically focused on business, entrepreneurship, or just somewhere within your career or your job, rejection covers a lot of different facets of our life. I know another area where this might be applicable, some of the things that I'm going to talk about today could potentially be dating, where I know a lot of folks are afraid of dating because they're afraid of rejection. And so I'm hoping that some of these tips I share with you about my experience with rejection in business might also be helpful to you in other facets of your life. Rejection is not a setback. So I personally don't think rejection is a setback. I use rejection as data to understand what could I do better the next time, or how could I reframe this rejection so that it works for me and not against me. So recently in my business, let me give you an example. So recently in my business, we had submitted a proposal for a really large contract opportunity. And so typically how we function is that we like to go after opportunities where we've established some type of relationship so that they can know who they're working with. And then we proceed to, apply for these opportunities. And so this was an opportunity that our team was really excited about. We thought we were a great fit for it, but then we ended up getting rejected for the opportunity. Now, younger Sonia in the early years of business, getting a no for that opportunity, and let me say this, it was a six-figure opportunity. So getting a no for that opportunity in the past would have been, I would have been distraught. I would have been absolutely just upset and sad about it, mad about it, whatever the case is. But it was something different I noticed about this rejection and my approach and the actions I took immediately after getting that rejection was an indication to me that I had grown not only in terms of emotional intelligence, but just the reality of the world that I live in as a business owner. And so, what happened after we got this email was that we were like, okay, we didn't get this opportunity. And so, as the team was really trying to, I guess, do some introspection and really understand what could have been the factors for us getting these opportunities, I paused and I had a really simple response. And what I said was, what more than likely happened was that we got rejected from the opportunity because we were not in proximity to the organization that needed a consultant to work on this project. That was my very simple response to it. We reached back out to the proposer to get some feedback about the opportunity. And what they let us know was that they selected someone who understood the landscape of the city that they were in. And so that person was in proximity to them and knew more about the specifics of the project. And so for me, I was like, okay, I knew, like, it made me feel so good because I was like, okay, I know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that was just kind of one example of how I didn't let rejection debilitate me, but I used it as information. And so once we got that information from the proposer, what we immediately did was went back to our proposal template, and we refined the proposal template to reflect having an understanding of the areas that we are submitting, opportunities to, and just being really clear about what it is that we do, what we're capable of, and what we know when it comes to business. And so I use that opportunity as an opportunity to not only refine what we do as a business, but also be more intentional about the way that we're not only establishing relationships, but what type of opportunities we are going after. And so I say all that to say that that rejection was an opportunity for feedback, not an opportunity for us to feel like a failure in the work that we do. And so what I want to say is that rejection is an opportunity to tell you what is working, what is not working, what needs improvement, where you need to pivot instead of fearing rejection, and how you can start tracking it. And so that is what we did in that situation where we got rejected from a really large opportunity. And so a lot of times what I find just in human nature, regardless of, the type of work that you're doing, whether you have your own business, whether you're working at a job, whatever, even if you're just trying to explore what your next role or opportunity will be. I know a lot of folks are applying for jobs right now. And so, getting rejected at a job can also feel like a gut punch as well. But one of the things I want you to ask yourself is, what patterns are you seeing in the rejection? Because I guarantee there's a pattern. You might have just not picked up on it yet. And then also, what objections keep coming up as well? So if you're consistently being rejected, that is an opportunity for you to pause and be like, what is the reason that this rejection keeps happening? What role am I playing in this rejection? What are the patterns that I'm seeing? What are the things that I might be missing? How can I refine the messaging or what it is that I'm trying to offer to people? Because I will tell you this, the best entrepreneurs aren't the ones that avoid rejection. They're the ones that learn from it and keep it pushing. And that, I'm telling y'all, once you get in a space of being able to learn from being told no, it will help you navigate your career or your business or entrepreneurship a whole lot easier and with less frustration. Here are some questions that I want you to ask yourself when it comes to taking time to sit with, what does rejection mean to you? And the first one is, what story am I telling myself about this rejection that I am experiencing? Am I making this about my worth, or is it simply just a challenge of timing and fit? And so, as I gave you the example of the contract opportunity that we were not selected for, I could have easily made that about the business, right? And my worth as a business owner. I could have easily been like, well, you know what? We just might not be good at what we do. Maybe we're not offering the right services. Maybe we're not great consultants. I could have easily done that. That would have been the easy thing to do. But what I simply did was shifted my mindset to think about, was this a fit in a timing issue? And as I mentioned to y'all, it was simply just a fit issue. And it's not to say that this opportunity will never resurface, because that's another thing I notice in rejection. A lot of the times in situations, especially within my business, when we are told no, that is usually mean no, not right now. And in most cases, what ends up happening is that those folks who initially told us no circle back, whether it's a few months later or a few years later, to circle back to us and say, hey, we have this opportunity. We thought that you all might be a good fit for it. And so I want you to consider that as well, is that it simply could be just a timing and a fit issue, but it should never, rejection should never be tied to your worth and your value. And one thing I also want to say is that, are you looking at rejection as something that is personal to you? Again, when we're talking about business, or are you looking at it as this is just business, right? And so when you're able to think about the latter of, okay, this is just business, it'll allow you to move faster through the rejection and not hold on to it as your own personal issue. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, what am I assuming about rejection that might not even be true? Now, let me tell y'all this. I am a person who has the tendency to catastrophize things. And so what that means when I say catastrophize things, and this is probably relatable to a lot of folks who are watching this right now. What that means is that when situations come up, sometimes I have the tendency of thinking like the worst case scenario, right? And I'm talking about, if I sit with something too long, I'm going to think about it in the most dramatic way. And so that is something that requires me to be very intentional about the way I approach things, and also about the thought process as I navigate situations like after they've already happened. And so instead of me, what I've been challenging myself to do, instead of me thinking about the worst case scenario, I always try to think about the best case scenario. So, like, what is the best thing that can happen? And what's been really interesting in business, because I've been able to shift my mindset that way, when we get rejected from an opportunity, a lot of times the first thing I say is, man, I'm glad we didn't get that opportunity, because that would have been more work for us. That would have put us in a position where we would have been super busy all of a sudden. Like, I really try to shift the narrative around rejection, and that's been really, really helpful to me. And so, what I will say, and of course, I kind of already mentioned this, is that, does one no mean that every future opportunity will be a no? I want you to challenge yourself with that. Does one no mean every opportunity will be a no? And so that is a mindset shift that I encourage you to sit with a little while, because I will say what happens too when there are seasons of like rejection that are happening. What tends to happen is that you start to get in the mindset of thinking that just because you keep getting rejected, that is going to keep happening over and over and over. And that is simply not the case at all. For us in my business, when we get rejected from opportunities, what it is that it's an indication that we need to shift our alignment to the things that we truly do really well, and also shifting us to really being intentional about the type of organizations that we are interested in working with. And so, because we have been in a season of rejection, what it has been forcing us to do is really think about who do we really want to work with? Like, what are the who are our ideal clients? Who are the folks that we actually want to work with? What type of projects do we actually want to work with? Because that's really important as well. And it really helps us understand, are we even on track, and are we following our business strategy to a T? And so that is what rejection has been teaching us. But it's not, we don't look at it as like, oh, we keep getting told no, so everything must be a no. We get a no, we reset, and then we keep moving forward. I also want you to ask yourself, do you believe that rejection means that you're not good enough, or could it simply mean that you're just not in front of the right people yet? And so for us, what we've been exploring is then how do we get in front of the right people? Because that is what the indication is when we are being told no for opportunities, is letting us know that we need to figure out how do we get in front of the right people who are going to understand what it is that we do, what it is that we have to offer, and then what unique value we would bring to that project. And so that is what rejection has been an indication for us. Another question that I think is really important in navigating the space of rejection is asking, what is this rejection teaching me? Is there something in my offer, in my messaging, in the approach that needs to be refined? And then how can I use this experience to improve rather than retreat and take a step back? Now, that's a big thing that I want to talk about. In this business world, as a business owner, I often see my colleagues and peers punish themselves from opportunity, from success, from progress in their own businesses because they would rather retreat than to use rejection as an opportunity to improve and move forward. I recently heard this quote. I don't remember where I heard it, but it was so profound to me. It's a little bit funny, but it was so profound to me. And the quote said, and I don't remember who said it, but it said, sometimes in life we boo ourselves off of the stage before we even give other people an opportunity to do so. And when I heard that and when I sat with it a little bit, I was like, that is so true. There are a lot of times in life where we have these phenomenal ideas. We know we're super gifted at specific things. We know what we have to offer to the world. And the first time we're met with resistance or rejection, we retreat from that. So we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to get into alignment with the people who will tell us yes, because we let one no stop us from progress and success. And so I want to encourage you that when you experience rejection, figure out how to turn that opportunity from frustration into progress for yourself. Do not let rejection put you in a position to retreat every time you're told no. Another question I want you to ask yourself is, am I focusing on what I can control? Now, this is super, super, super important because I think a lot of times as humans, especially in business, is that we try to focus on a lot of things that we have no control over, right? In my business as a consultant, we have no control over who other companies want to work with. We don't have control over how they decide who they want to work with. We don't have control over, how people plan out their budgets, all of that stuff. But what we do have control over is refining what we offer as a company. Those are the things that we have control over. And so those are the things that we put our energy into as a consulting firm. And so a question I want to pose to you here is, am I adjusting my approach based on feedback, or am I stuck in frustration? Do not let yourself get stuck in a holding pattern because you are frustrated about the outcome of situations. Allow your approach in business to be focused on the feedback that you are getting from other people. Follow up. Somebody just told me this yesterday. I had a meeting with a business advisor I had worked with in a previous project. And so we had a conversation yesterday. And so she told me, she was like, your feedback game is strong. And I love that because I love following up with people. Like I love following up with people. I love getting feedback. I love getting feedback. Like I just love the ability to understand what went wrong, what can be done again or redone, like what can be done different next time. Like I love feedback and follow up. And so, because of the feedback I often ask for people intentionally, it allows me to recognize what areas of improvement I need to consider. And then one of my favorite things about feedback is understanding what gaps exist that maybe I don't have my eye on because I'm in this work every single day. So I love feedback. I know feedback can be scary for people, both people who are giving feedback and both people who are receiving feedback. That is not my approach to feedback. My approach to feedback is tell me what you see that I'm doing that can be improved so then I make the necessary improvements in a very intentional way. So that's also a part of rejection too. Anytime you are rejected and you are comfortable enough to ask for feedback, more times than not, you will probably get exactly what you were looking for to confirm whatever it is that you were thinking. Feedback is also really helpful, especially in the realm of rejection, because if you're a person like me who used to have a tendency of overthinking every single thing, feedback for me allows me to not have to overthink. So I would rather somebody just be very quick and straightforward with me and say, you could have did this better, this could have been done better, whatever the case is, instead of me trying to fill in my own gaps. There's this quote I say all the time, and the quote says, imagination fills in the gaps of no communication. And what that means, especially when we think again about just human nature in general, is that people's brains just have a tendency of filling in the blanks when they don't have enough information. And so, again, when we're thinking about rejection, it's really important to ask for feedback because this will position you to not have to fill in those gaps yourself, because then you're getting the information that you need to understand what could be done better next time. Now, the last thing that I want to share with you is what's the worst thing that can happen if I keep going? And so this is probably really helpful in business, but it also makes me think about like my approach to dating as well. And so a lot of times rejection positions people to then become afraid of continuing to move forward. And I've probably said that multiple times throughout this video, but just in a number of different ways. I want to ask you to sit with this for a little while and think about it this way. What's the actual risk of hearing no again, right? So I'm in a mindset, I'm in a space right now, just in life in general, like I mentioned, with business, with dating, just life in general, is that what is the harm if people keep telling me no? Like, I'm not committing any crimes. I'm not harming anybody. I'm not doing anything that would be destructive to my life or to anybody else's life. So at the end of the day, what is the challenge with being told no? And there's really no challenge or issue with being told no. So for me, again, when we think about like the concept or the idea of rejection therapy, at this point in my life, a no is just a no. Like it doesn't make me lose sleep at night. It doesn't debilitate me like it used to. It's just being told no, and then you move on from it. And then the last thing that I want you to sit with a little while is this fear of rejection greater than my desire to succeed? And for me, I'm gonna say hell no. I find success in everything that I do, even with the amount of no's that I get told within a week, because at this point they are adding up. But that lets me know that I am becoming very audacious in the way that I approach life in general, because a no does not stop me from moving forward. Success in my business, which again, success is subjective for every single person, but success for me and the way I define success is not, cannot be stopped just because somebody told me no for something. So that is my approach to rejection. That is my thought process about rejection. That is the way I sit with rejection. And so I want to encourage you to really think about what rejection feels like to you. How do you navigate spaces of being told no? And then how do you use rejection as fuel? How do you alchemize rejection to be able to keep moving forward even when you're constantly being told no? So I hope that this was super helpful for someone, even if it was just one person. And I look forward to having more of these conversations with y'all. I hope you have a beautiful day. Love you. Take care, y'all.